Today we are going to share exactly how much we spent while walking the Camino Frances. So we spent 44 days from landing in Paris to leaving from Santiago. 39 of those days were spent walking with a couple days on either end. And we're going to go through all of our expenses, our accommodation, our food, all of the little ancillary expenses. Now, this is not an instruction on how much you should spend or should anticipate. We're just going to give you an idea, something to compare to so that you can start planning for your own Camino.
There are two categories we are not going to include in this talk today, and those are transportation to and from our start and ending points, because those are far too variable from pilgrim to pilgrim. It depends on where you're coming from, where you're going. For example, we flew to Bali after the Camino, which would be far different than if we had flown back home. Also, we're not talking about gear because a lot of it we had already. You may want to buy some really fancy quality stuff, or you may not care. There's too much variation in what is possible in those categories, so we are going to skip those today.
So we're going to dive into the numbers and share everything by category, but make sure to stick around until the end where we share the total cost and average daily cost, which might be an easier number to kind of wrap your mind around. Now keep in mind, all of the numbers that we're going to share today are going to be in US dollars. At the time we traveled, the euro was pretty close to dollars. It was €1 to $1.07. So if you are looking for numbers in euros, just make it a little bit smaller. And keep in mind, these numbers are for two people. So if you are traveling by yourself, most of the numbers you can cut in half other than accommodation. We'll talk a little bit about that. All right, you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
So the first category is one of my favorites. Food. We spent $1,369 on food. This was an average of $31 a day. So we broke this down into two categories, eating out and eating out of grocery stores, which we did quite a lot of. And we were pretty close. Our grocery bill was $642 and eating out was $727. We ate a lot out of grocery stores for a couple of reasons.
We probably ate out of grocery stores more than most people do.
For a couple of reasons. On one hand, we were trying to save money because we wanted to splurge on accommodation, which we'll get to next.
And I think it helped a lot.
When you're going to the Pilgrim dinners at night, they are often, $15, $18 per person. And we could go to the grocery store and get a prepared salad and some bread or an avocado or whatever for considerably less than that.
And it was not that hard to find grocery stores. We could find them in pretty much every town we went to.
That was one of the biggest questions we had going into it, is what is the food going to be like? And we were very happy how easy it was to find those grocery stores. There were a couple of times we were in very small places and we ended up eating out of like gas stations. Convenience stores, which wasn't as great of a selection. But I think in general, we ate really well. And another advantage to that is because Spain is on this crazy time zone, they eat very late at night. And so usually the restaurants or pilgrim dinners didn't start until 7 o'clock, 7:30. And we often wanted to eat before that because we were getting up early to walk. We wanted to go to bed early. And so by eating out of grocery stores, we could eat at 5 o'clock. And it was just a lot more convenient.
And I'd say another advantage to eating out of grocery stores was that I think we ate more healthily.
The pilgrim meals are good, but it's a whole lot of paella.
A lot of starch, bread.
Yes. And so having those salads,
we had salads and fruit and vegetables quite a bit.
The advantage to the pilgrim meals is the social aspect of them, which you have to do it sometimes.
We met a lot of people just by going to those meals.
Yes, you get sat at a table, or maybe it's a big communal table, and they can be really fun. We just didn't want to do it every single night. Now, the next category we're going to get to is the other big one, which is accommodation. And we spent $2,544. This was over 44 nights of accommodation, so that averaged out about $59 per night. So we kind of intentionally splurged a bit here. And if you're looking to try and save money, the best thing you can do is go to an albergue. We did spend a number of nights in albergues and
we enjoyed
dorms.
Our experiences in them.
And we wanted to do that because we wanted to have that experience, but also, we've spent a lot of nights in dorm rooms and hostels over the course of our traveling life. And we were ready to have private rooms, and we did private rooms most of the time. Now, if we could find a private room in an albergue, albergue where it was still kind of social, we would do that. But in a lot of places, especially in the bigger cities, we ended up in more hotels.
Which I normally did not enjoy that.
Yeah.
If we were in a hotel that was really disconnected from the Camino, I didn't feel like it was a part of my experience as much.
Dorm rooms are what they are. And, you know, you kind of have to deal with the snoring and the people crinkling their plastic bags at 4 a.m. That didn't really bother us too much. But we still just enjoyed, you know, having that privacy of a private room with a private bath frequently, but not always. Just to kind of give you the range. So our lowest priced room, it was a dorm room that we spent $26 on. That was $13 each. Our lowest priced private room was $32, and that was in an albergue. Now, just as a tip, if you are 2 people traveling together, you can frequently, if you're in the albergue, get a 2-person room for about the same, or sometimes even a couple of dollars cheaper than getting 2 beds in the dorm room. So that can be kind of a nice deal. It's just not every albergue has a private room, or they don't have very many of them, so they tend to go fast. Our most expensive private room was $102. So that was definitely a splurge. That was in the city of Astorga. The room itself was not that much nicer than the other rooms that we stayed in, but what it had was a view. We had a balcony that looked across to the
Gaudi Palace.
Yes.
And it was
and the big
gorgeous.
cathedral. And, you know, we were able to sit there and have a bottle of wine with our dinner. It was
worth the splurge for us.
I mean, we talked to people who found dorm rooms in the albergues for like $8 a night. So you can definitely save money in this category if you want to. This is where we decided to splurge, and we saved money by eating at groceries.
If you are enjoying this video, please hit the like button. It helps us grow our channel and get the word out.
Okay, so what next? Next, we're going to talk about transportation. So we didn't have a whole lot of transportation charges because we were walking, of course, but we did have 3 cases of transportation. The first was getting from Paris to St. Jean Pied de Port. So we spent $28 getting an Uber from the Orly airport to the train station at Gite Austerlitz. And then once we were there, we took an overnight train from Paris down to Bayonne. That was $180. We decided to take the night train because then we didn't have to get a hotel for that night. The compartment comes with 6 beds in it. But when you book your tickets, if you book them early enough, the system will allow you to book all 6 beds. So it was just the 2 of us in the compartment. It made it a private compartment. And for us, that was really worth it.
Very useful. We were both coming in from different locations, and that was our only opportunity to repack all of our bags for the Camino. So it was really important that we had some space to do that.
Yeah, because we spent probably a good 2 hours once we got on the train just reorganizing our bags. So we had the bags that we were going to take on the Camino with us, and then we had some other bags that we sent ahead. So we needed to divide everything out. And if there had been other people in that compartment, that just wouldn't have worked.
And as far as sleeping, I actually slept pretty well on that train too.
Yeah, it was really nice. So if you are looking for a way to save money, you can still take that night train, but just, you know, share a cabin with other people, and that can be a whole lot cheaper than that. From there, when we arrived to Bayonne, we got on another, just a short little commuter train to St. Jean Pied de Port. It was very easy transfer, and that cost $22. Then the next piece of transportation was one that we did not anticipate. This was a surprise cost. But when we got to the Meseta, my blisters got really bad, and we were halfway through a day of walking, and I realized I needed to take a break. We were out of rest days and we couldn't just stop where we were. So we had to take some transportation to the city of León. We were in Casadilla de la Cueza, and we got a taxi. We were at a cafe, and the cafe owner helped us call the taxi to Sahagún, and that was $33 to get there. Once we got to Sahagún, he dropped us off at the train station, and we were able to get a bus from the train station. And that bus from Sahagún to León was $15 for the both of us. And then after we spent a couple of days resting in León, the following day was a really long one. It was 32 kilometers. I was a little nervous about walking that far. So we did take a short bus just to get us outside of the city, 7 kilometers to La Virgen. And that was $4 US for the both of us. So that just cut that day down a little bit and added on to that expense. And then finally, once we got into Santiago at the very end, we needed to get to the train station. Luckily, the hotel that we stayed at was right next to a bus stop. We were able to get on the airport bus right there, and it cost us $2 for both of us to get to the airport. That was super cheap and easy. So next we're just going to go through some of our miscellaneous expenses. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory and some of them we'll talk a little bit about. The first one is our phones. So we both have unlocked iPhones that are compatible with eSIMs, and we both wanted to have data while we were on the trail, you know, to use our apps or to be able to book ahead accommodations. And so we both got eSIMs through a company called MobiMatter. Those eSIMs were $6.99. They were good for 30 days and gave us 3 gigabytes of data, which was plenty for us. And so that was a cost of $28 because we both had to renew the plan halfway through. One gear expense that we did have on the Camino was hiking poles. And we did a whole video on the gear that we brought. I will put the link to that right up here. But the hiking poles I'm just including here because we actually bought them while we were on the Camino. We got a pair in Paris and then another pair in St. John Pied de Port, and we spent $47 on both of those. The next one is our Camino credential, which we got at the Pilgrim office in St. John Pied de Port. That was $4. And then we had to send our bags. I had our extra bags since we were, you know, headed to Bali after this. We had our other stuff with us. And so we used a company in St. John Pied de Port called Express Burricat. And that cost us $153 to send our bags, 2 different bags, all the way to our hotel where we ended up staying in Santiago de Compostela. And so that was a very simple process. We just went to their office, which is
right next to the
Pilgrim office, and sent those ahead. That was definitely a charge that was worth it for us. Next, we had luggage transport. So we did transport our bags one day while we were on the Camino.
We thought we'd treat ourselves because we had carried them for hundreds of miles at this point. And we wanted to know what the process was anyways. And it was pretty easy.
And so that cost us $9 for both of our bags. That was our second to last stage, right at the very end. Something that was fun to try. Now, if you're someone who wants to send your bags ahead every day, just know that those prices can run anywhere. I mean, we saw them earlier on, they're more expensive, like $7, €8, to like 4 or 5 once you get at the end. But if you want to pay that every day, just make sure you put that in your budget. Camino souvenirs. So we're not really souvenir people. We don't really buy a lot, but I did actually, I've got this bracelet right here. And so we spent $5 on souvenirs right at the end. And then we did give a donation of $2 to the lady playing the bagpipes when we walked into the square because it was just very magical and we had some coins in our pockets. We gave her $2. Here's some even more random things. There was a $1 that we spent on a bathroom somewhere along the way.
Somewhere we needed to go, and
it was a free bathroom. We spent $16 in St. John Pied de Port buying some allergy and stomach medication. $14 on a pair of sunglasses. Did you break a pair somewhere along the way or lose it?
I always break a pair somewhere along the way. So,
sunglasses are always disposable. $14 for a new pair. We did all of our laundry in a machine when we got to Saria. We were there a couple of days and we spent $8 getting all of our clothes very thoroughly washed, which was appreciated. $9 on a charging cord for our computer. The cord just broke and so we bought a new one. Then we spent $18 on ibuprofen. So ibuprofen is one of those things, just be prepared, you're gonna go through a lot of it. We brought some with us, but we went through it all. And then there's pharmacies everywhere, so it's very easy to buy stuff like ibuprofen. But when you're buying small quantities, it can be a little more expensive. So that was $18. It wasn't for a lot, it was just for the last, I don't know, maybe week where we ran out of it. So make sure you bring enough ibuprofen with you because it's much cheaper than buying it when you're there. And then finally, our last expense was on blister care. Now, as if you've watched any of our other videos, you know I suffered from blisters from day 2 all the way until the end. It was an ongoing drama. I tried every single kind of dressing and tip and assistance, whatever I could get, I tried it. And so we spent $107 on all the different dressings and stuff that I bought along the way, which none of it really worked. The little foam padding helped the most.
It helped.
It definitely helped.
If you hadn't bought Oh, if you hadn't spent that,
it would have been worse.
It would have been worse.
Just be prepared. Some of these expenses are stuff you're going to plan for, and some of them, come up. And so we did spend $107 on blister care. So our grand total of what we spent was $4,617. This is over 44 days. So that averaged out to be $105 that we spent for the both of us, US dollars per day. And I think that's pretty much what we expected.
Yes.
Our goal going into it was about $100 a day. It was just a little bit over that, but I think that's fine. And I think it was a pretty comfortable Camino for us. We splurged where we wanted to splurge. We saved money where we wanted to save money.
Yeah, we ate what we wanted to.
Yeah.
I didn't regret spending too much on anything.
Yeah.
And we didn't suffer because
Yeah.
we wanted something more.
We were pretty comfortable. Now, I will say, just in case you're kind of going through these categories and you're like, oh, maybe there's something else, there are a few places you might end up spending more money that you might want to be prepared for. Now, a big one that we spent $0 on was entertainment. And where you might see these costs, if you want to go out to the clubs when you're in the big city, if you want to go into churches and museums that there's often entrance fees to a lot of those places. We didn't really do any of that. That was partly intentional on our part. We really just wanted to come in and let the Camino be what it was going to be. So we didn't plan ahead. When we were young travelers, we were much more focused on, we're going to be there and maybe we'll never come back. So I need to see everything and do everything in case I never go back. And at this point, we've been to 90 countries and we go back to places all the time. And so I wasn't worried about missing anything because I know if I wanted to go back, we'll go back and do it again, which I think we might do.
Yep. We did a lot. I went hiking all the time.
Yeah.
I did my bird watching, which I love. So we did a lot of activities, walking around town and exploring. Yes. Just not things that we had to spend money on.
Most of the things we were doing was like we would go meet our friends for dinner or tapas or something. And that's where we decided to spend our money rather than going to another church or castle. But those things are there, and if that interests you, that might be something you want to spend some money on. A few other things you might want to consider when you're looking at things you might spend money on are you going to be a person that wants to get massages or spa treatments as you go along the way? Are you going to need any medical care? Are you going to do any gear replacement? So we talked to a lot of people who bought a brand new pair of shoes halfway through the Camino because the ones they brought weren't working out. So just be prepared. That might be an expense you might need to be able to cover. Another one was local events and festivals. So when we got to Ponferrada, they were having
a huge festival, the Templar Nights Festival. And there was so much going on and so much we could have spent money on if we had wanted to. It looked like a lot of fun. Another place where a lot of people spent more money than we did is alcohol. There are lots of opportunities to sit down and have a beer or a glass of wine and to sit with friends. We did buy some bottles of wine for our dinners at the grocery store, but we didn't go out a lot. So you might want to plan for that.
If you have any tips of your own on ways to spend your money or on ways to save money while you're on the Camino, please feel free to leave those down in the comments below. We hope you found this helpful just to get an example of what we spent while we were on the Camino. If you have any questions about specific stages during the Camino, we shot a video every single day where we talked about the walk, exactly where we stayed every night, how much it cost, what we were eating, all of those kind of details. I will put a link to that playlist if you'd like to check it out right over here.